Is this your king? Ray Hagins edition. Yep, what's going on, party people in the place to be? I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Hope everybody's doing well. Of course, we gotta say what's up to the party people in the chat. We got Bodega Lady Dean New on the check-in. We got the incomparable, the indelible Natu D2 in the building. As always, if you have not yet already, please like, share, and subscribe. Please share this link. We want to fill up the chat as much as we can. And if you like how it goes down with the BK, you can show your appreciation via PayPal. Or if you'd like to be a monthly supporter of BK, you could become a patron, where you get an assortment of teaching aids to help you in your personal Bible study. So here we are, another installment of the "Is This Your King" series, where we take some time to do some commentary as only the UA can do when it comes to the OGs, the pillars, the master teachers of the conscious community. And of course, by my side, always showing that Southern hospitality. And what I mean by hospitality, I mean that that sword that he keeps in his boot shoe. Uh, MJ Jackson, what's going on, sir?
What's up, big bro? Just coming to get in on this wonderful series that you're doing. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I heard from you that we already have people upset with us about Ben Yokanen.
Oh yeah, yeah. People are not happy about that, but we knew that going into this, right?
Yes,
We're
yes,
not
absolutely.
surprised. And but I mean, since you brought that up, the issue someone had was, well, he's dead now.
So
Why are you talking as if it's like it was never personal. It's just his information against Christianity was incorrect, and we decided to speak on that. That's it. And the information that he taught has spread to other people. So we decided to go to the root. That's what we did. So it was never any malice towards him or his family. You know what I mean? We're here to go against false information that attacks our belief. That's it. That's it. And speaking of false information, the next person we will be discussing today is Ray Hagins. Now, it is rare that a day goes by where I don't see someone share a Ray Hagins clip, whether it's a short YouTube, a short, or it's a TikTok. You know, somebody's always, you know, using him to try to deconstruct and destroy Christianity. So, before we get into these different clips, what are some of your preliminary thoughts about Mr. Hagins, MJ?
well, Ray Hagen is very much like a WWE character in that he has a certain gimmick, and this might sound mean or whatever, but it has a certain church feel. His presentation has a
Big
certain
time. Big time.
Baptist church preacher feel to
Yeah.
it, and that's part of the design of it, right?
Yes.
Is to appeal to the African American community culturally speaking, but the information is just off the wall in terms of his pseudoness, if I can use that as a word.
Sure.
But yeah, man, I would see pictures of Ray Hagen always talking about Heru. I think I cut my teeth on the True ID podcast. Shout out to Adam Coleman, Scott Lane, Black Bruce Wayne. Um, when he talked about how he went down there and confronted Ray Hagen. That
That's
was a
right.
that was a
That's
pretty
right.
good
That's right. I forgot about
episode.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, with that being said, let's get into it, man. So let's look at this first video here. Yeah, you can just play it from the beginning, bro.
All right. Here is Brother Ray.
In 1515, what year did I just say? 1515. One more time, what year? 1515. In 1515, Pope Leo the 10th, write it down, don't take my word for it. Pope Leo the 10th in the year 1515 said these words. I quote him, "What profit hath not this fable of Christ brought to us?" End of quote. Now, allow me to transliterate that. Here's what the man said. Look at how much money we've made from this tale about a figure that we created called Jesus Christ.
You can stop it there.
Here we see one of the most powerful.
So right off the bat, MJ, what does it mean to transliterate something?
A transliteration it's not quite a translation, but it's like, let's say that the Greek has a certain pronunciation, and I could be wrong. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But it's to take that pronunciation and to put it into English words,
Right.
so to speak. That's what it means to transliterate, I believe. You language experts, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it says here, transliteration refers to the method of mapping from one system of writing to another based on phonetic similarity. Was that what he was doing there? No. He's already using the word incorrectly, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's get to it. So,
and this, let me just keep it real. This just pisses me off. When I mean, on the cool, this pisses me off because I take education seriously. I believe everybody in our community takes education seriously. We have already talked about, the issues with Africana studies. There are some people who do it right. African American studies, some people who do it right. But we talked to, we've already pointed out what's going on with the Supreme Court in terms of affirmative actions, and they're pointing to certain things. But this right here, look, you black people are being bewitched by this. And you really just taking advantage of people because you're trying to sound smart with words you don't even know the meaning of.
Right. So that's already, he's already off. But it gets worse though. It gets worse. So we're going to be looking at a book called What They Didn't Say. You already know where we're going if I'm quoting a book entitled What They Didn't Say, a book of misquotation by Elizabeth Knowles. All right. So a phrase attributed to Pope Leo X by anti-Catholic by anti-Catholic polemic of the 16th century. The story is given, for example, in the Theater of God's Judgment, 1597. So he got the date wrong too. He kept saying 1515. No, 1597. By the virulently anti-Catholic writer and clergyman Thomas Beard, describing a conversation between Pope Leo, a Florentine by birth, and Cardinal Bimbo, who also showed himself to be none of the best Christians in the world by his Venetian history. He alleged that the Pope replied, quote, that this fable of Christ had brought to him and such as he no little profit. The story is found over 20 years earlier in the Pageant of Popes, 1574. A what, MJ?
Satirical work.
A satirical work by the evangelical polemist John Bell. Bell wrote, for on a time when Cardinal Bimbos did move a question out of the gospel, the Pope gave him a very contemptuous answer, saying, all ages can testify enough how profitable that fable of Christ have been to us in our company. Now, satire, artistic form, chiefly literary and dramatic, in which human or individual vices, follies, abuses, or shortcomings are held up to censure by means of ridicule, desertion, burlesque, irony, parody, caricature, or other methods, sometimes with intent to inspire social reform. This was not an actual quote from the Pope. This is satire. They're mocking the Pope in this. It's not an actual quote. But he told you, write it down. Don't take my word for it. You're right. We're not, because you're wrong. It's satire, bro.
He said, write it down.
He said, write it down.
And he sounds so convinced.
He said, write it down.
Write it down.
All right, so next up, let me hit you with this one over here. Is this the one? No, okay, this the one, yeah. All right, I'm going to give it to you right now. And I will need you, once you get it, I need you to get to the 3 minute and 33-second mark.
Okay, hold on.
And as you do that, say what's up to Chicken Grease. We got Bodega Lady Michelle Turner on the check-in. We got Cigar Bro 85. We got Carter C. Goodson. We got Follower in Truth, LJ in the building.
You said 3 minute what mark?
3 minute and 33-second.
3:33.
So you good?
All right, you ready? Yeah, you ready?
All right, let's go.
All right.
Radio lady, she asked me to prove to her that Jesus never existed or that Moses never existed. See, and I sent this long email back trying to explain to her it is impossible to prove the non-existence of a thing. Think for me for a moment. If something never existed, how can I prove that it doesn't exist? So I told her, I said, let me reverse the challenge. Prove to me that they did exist. And I will pay all of your living expenses for the rest of your life. You see? That's what we should be. And I asked her, I said, you're asking me to prove to you that there was no Adam, there was no Eve, there was no Noah. You asked me to prove this to you. Did you ask your original teachers who taught you this to prove to you then that they existed? No. The answer was no. I didn't do it. I was raised with a belief system. I was raised in a
So yeah. I mean, he does a couple of things here. Well, one thing you have to take note, and you mentioned this earlier, MJ. His Baptist rhetorical flourishes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He relies heavily on that. And like you said, it is by design. It's a familiar vibe, right? The Baptist preacher, the Cohen response. These are the things that endear people to him. So because he sounds so confident in what he's saying, people will take it as the truth. Right? So, all right, so here's the problem with what he's saying. All right, the first thing is this. And this is from Logical Fallacious. What he did is it's called an alleged certainty, also known as assuming the conclusion. Description: asserting a conclusion without evidence or premises through a statement that makes the conclusion appear certain when in fact it is not. In the logical form, everybody knows that X is true, therefore X is true. Because what did he say, MJ? He said, I can't prove something that doesn't exist. Well, you're assuming that your premise is already proven, that he didn't exist.
Yeah.
This is an alleged certainty. He's being fallacious right now.
So basically, what you just giving me your opinion,
right?
Okay, and that's no justification to think that it's true. I'm gonna let you keep going, but I got a few things to say.
Okay, and so not only is he being fallacious here, he also shifts the burden of proof, right? Because the lady wrote to him asking him to explain why Jesus didn't exist.
Yeah.
So he does the alleged certainty, and then he literally says, and I reversed the question because you didn't want to answer it
You can't.
because you can't. So now you put the burden of proof on her, right? So, and listen, we all know this already, but we're gonna go through it very quickly. There is multiple evidences and proofs of a historical Jesus, right? And we're not even talking Bible, right? We're talking people like Pliny the Younger, Suetonius, Celsius, Josephus, hostile witnesses like the Talmud, Thalius, Tacitus, Bar Seraphon, Phlegon, right? And then we have people like Bert Ehrman, no friend of Christianity, says in his book that Jesus exists. The idea that Jesus did not exist is a modern notion. It has no ancient precedent. It was made up in the 18th century. One might as well call it a modern myth, the myth of the mythical Jesus. This man is agnostic, leaning atheist, does not believe in the Bible or the supernatural. And he says that this idea of Jesus not existing, that's a modern notion. Like no one believed that until the 18th century. Elsewhere, he says, I think the evidence is just so overwhelming that Jesus existed that it's silly to talk about him not existing. I don't know anyone who is a responsible historian who was actually trained in the historical method or anybody who is a biblical scholar who does this for a living who gives any credence at all to any of this. So Mr. Hagins has to pay up because of for him to be like there is no proof, there's no evidence at all. Really? Really? And this is your king? MJ, you thought
Yeah. Just to piggyback on what Sister Shadi said in the chat, right? If you make a claim, a knowledge claim, then the burden of proof is on you. Now you can try to reverse it all day. She can reverse it back. Well, no, Brother Hagins, Mr. Hagins, you made a claim. Now you have to justify that claim. Otherwise, you cannot say what you know. You cannot be said to know this. You know, according to that fallacy that you point out. You just asserting it. Secondly, I think that you can make arguments for the probability that a person didn't exist. You can do that. You might can't make it for 100% certainty, but once again, that just shows that Ray Hagen doesn't know what he's talking about because he's under the belief that you have to have 100% godlike, omniscient, perfect Cartesian certainty to know something, and
you.
don't. You don't know that the world existed 3 minutes ago with 100% certainty.
Right.
You know, based on your experience, you can believe that it did, but you can't prove it with 100% certainty. But he can most definitely take a shot at trying to discredit the earliest evidences that we have for the existence of Jesus. He can try to shoot holes in the credo statement in 1 Corinthians 15. He can try to shoot holes in Pliny the Younger. He can try to and people have done it. It's just that Ray Hagins lacks the ability to do it. He's selling wolf tickets.
Right. Right. And I mean, you would think by this time he would have pivoted in this claim of the non-existence of Jesus. You would think, but as long as people, again, it's the whole itching ear thing as well. And this goes for the entire conscious community. It's not that they've done the research and they've concluded he doesn't exist. No, they need Jesus not to exist. Because if Jesus exists, now we got to talk about the claims about Jesus, and they don't want to have that conversation. It's much easier to just say he didn't exist, therefore we don't have to talk about him anymore. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. So now, MJ, I'm gonna give you the final. video. All right, here we go. And as we do that, I want to say what's up to Shotty Mills in the building. We got Miss Titus 2 in the building. We got Chris Gibson on the check-in. We got N.E. Hawkins in the building. Definitely appreciate. We got DFC Diatribe in the building. You know, definitely appreciate all the love, guys. Please, again, share the link. Let's bring everybody up here so they can see the dismantling of the good doctor over here. You know, and MJ, if you can start it at the 57-second mark, and we're gonna let this one play a little because honestly, this is actually the most egregious clip that we're gonna share tonight, and I'm gonna explain why. Okay, so you ready to rock, MJ? All
Didn't
right.
exist to do it, but somebody put it
Bring it
together
back a little.
and
Bring it back a
attributed it
little.
to Paul.
57 mark. Yeah, 54 is good. Let it rock. Yeah.
This dude is. Here's what he says. Or I should say really how shallow he is. Whoever put this together, because Paul didn't exist to do it, but somebody.
I'm sorry. Can I just say something?
Sure.
Paul didn't exist to do it. You just made another knowledge claim. What's your evidence, bro?
Right.
What's your evidence? And so when you say that, well, I don't have to prove the non-existence of anything. Well, okay, so you don't have an argument. You're making you're committing another fallacy of making an argument from silence, which is what you're doing. But I'll up you another one. How about we have people who claim to know Paul in the early church fathers? How about that? And if you can't refute it,
set under Paul.
Set under Paul, was discipled by Paul. If you can't refute it, please retire. Shut it down. All right, I'm sorry. I just had to say that.
No, that's great. Yeah, keep going.
And then what we got First Corinthians. We got, even if you don't take that, Paul wrote everything that's attributed to him.
Most atheist, liberal New Testament scholars will give you 6 books that he wrote as being authenticated by Paul himself.
So if I have a letter that says, I, Paul, write this, what good reason do I have to deny that a person named Paul didn't write this?
But again, bro, if they don't exist, they don't need to have a conversation with us.
Exactly. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Good stuff.
Somebody put it together and attributed it to Paul because they knew you would believe that it came from God if you thought Paul did it. Got me? He says in the 15th verse, for that which I do, I allow not. In other words, I don't understand myself here. Go ahead.
For what I would.
For the thing that I want to do.
That do I not.
I'm not doing it. Go ahead.
But what I hate.
But the thing I don't want to do, the thing I hate doing, the thing I know I ain't got no business doing.
That do I.
That's what I'm doing. Now check how deep this goes. When I was a Christian and when I was unconscious and didn't want to take responsibility for my own actions, that was good news to me. You follow what I'm saying? I'm saying, yeah, I can relate to that. Oh, yeah, I can relate to that. I know I shouldn't be doing what things I'm doing, but hey, he had the same problem. So, hey, go ahead, read.
If then I do that which I would
Listen to this. If then I'm doing the stuff that I don't want to do,
I consent unto the law that it is good.
My conscience agrees that God's law is right. Go ahead.
Now then, it is no more I that do it.
Now this is deep, because now you're about to hear Flip Wilson come out.
But sin.
Now then, I agree that it's really no more I that's doing this.
But sin that dwelleth dwelleth in
but sin that dwelleth in me, that's making me do what I don't want to do. So notice what he says. He says, it's really not me. In psychology, we call this multiple personality disorder. It ain't really me that's doing it, it's sin. Geraldine used to say, the devil made me do it. I ain't do that, the devil made me do it. Go ahead, read.
For I know that in me.
Check that. Now check out this. This is some deep stuff here. For I know, this is the verse I was going to have her read it first. For I know that in me,
That is in my flesh.
meaning in my flesh, in my very being, what?
Dwelleth no good thing.
Do y'all hear this? Yes. Now what's really tragic is black folk are being taught this. I know they're being taught it because I taught this to them. I know that in me, meaning in my being, in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. Go ahead.
For to will is present with me.
For to will is present with me. In other words, I want to do the right thing.
But how to perform that which is good, I find not.
Now this is deep. As bad as I want to do what I know I ought to be doing, for some reason or other, I just can't get it done. That's what it's saying. I know what I ought to be doing, but I'm having a problem with it done. Go ahead, read.
For the good that I would, I do not.
For I know I need to be doing the right thing, and I want to do what's really good, but I ain't doing it.
But the evil which I would not, that I do.
But the evil, the wrong that I know I ain't got no business doing, that's what I'm doing. Ain't this deep here? I'm messed up as I can be. Y'all see this Pauline message? See, when a person who talks, really, if a person was to walk up to you and talk this and explain this, you know, now, Shelly, I got a problem. You know, I know what I ought to be doing, but I ain't getting it done. I don't understand what's really going on with me because I know what the right thing is to do, but the wrong thing that's on this side of my head is what I keep doing. I don't want to do what, you know, I'm all messed up here. You know? So, what you would say to that person, what is wrong with you? Go ahead, read.
Lost my place. now, if I do that, I would not.
Notice what he's saying. Now, here's the conclusion that I'm coming to. Now, if I do that which I don't want to do,
it is no more I that do it.
Again, it ain't really me. I'm convinced it ain't me.
But sin,
it wasn't me. Wasn't me. Now, I know you saw somebody look like me, but it wasn't me. If I do that which I don't want to do, it is what? You just read it. What is it?
But sin that dwelleth in me.
It's sin that dwelleth in me. Read.
I find then a law.
Check out the conclusion he comes to. I find then a law.
That when I would do good.
That when I would do good.
Evil is present with me.
Evil is always present. Go ahead.
For I delight in the law of God after the inward.
Now, in my conscience, I know what God would have me do, and that's what I get happy about. I get happy. I give praise to God. I just go to rejoicing. I go to claiming the victory in God, in my conscience, because of what I know the Lord would have me do. Go ahead.
But I see another law in my members.
Now, y'all remember in the cartoons you had the little angel on this shoulder and the little devil on this shoulder over here? All right. So, you know, the little angel over here telling me what I know I need to be doing, but I got this other little devil over here on this shoulder saying, go ahead, what does it say?
Warring against the law of my
And these two little guys.
All right. So you definitely get the gist, right?
Thank you, Jesus. This, I hope he didn't go to seminary.
Now, it's if eisegesis was a person, right? But you know, so
and look, can I just say this?
Go ahead, go for
it. If y'all know me by now, y'all know I don't play about Romans 7. I don't play about Romans 7. sometimes we have little intramural debates amongst ourselves about the nature of human depravity and free will and things like that. And Romans 7 is one of my favorite verses to explore that. But this dude right here. So Paul didn't write this, but he did. And the devil inspired Paul to write this. It's just right. Okay.
But he couldn't because Paul didn't exist, MJ.
Because okay. Yeah.
So somebody already mentioned it in the chat, but I'm gonna pull it up. The logical correct conclusion is that Paul probably existed and wrote the 6 authentic letters in the 50s AD. Richard Carrier, one of the main leaders of the Jesus mythicists coalition, he gives it up and it's like, no, Paul existed. And in fact, if you read this article, he goes at other mythicists who say that Paul didn't exist. Okay, so nobody in academia believes that Paul did not exist. Now, they will debate on the number of epistles that he actually wrote or not. As you see here, he only believes that, 6 letters are authentic. So they'll debate that. But you know what they do not debate? His existence. All right? So let's look at this verse that he just maligned real quick. All right? Did that which is good then bring death to me? By no means. It was sin producing death in me through what is good, in order that sin might be shown to be sin, and through the commandment might become sinful beyond measure. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am of the flesh, sold under sin. For I do not understand my own actions. For I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. It sounds a lot like he's taking ownership.
But let me just say this too.
It's a lot of eyes here.
That is a big deal. Anybody worth their salt who studied the book of Romans, right? And I would expect pastors to know this, to at least be able to consult at least a few background commentaries, for Christ's sake. That in Romans 6, Paul has already established that we are no longer slaves to sin, right? We died to sin. We've been raised to new life. We have a new existence. In Romans 7, so there is no confusion, he says in 7:1 says, I am speaking to those who know the law, right? Speaking to the Jewish crowd within the Roman church. The church at Rome was a mixed congregation. Right. He's saying, I'm speaking to those who know the law. Brothers and sisters, don't you know that the law rules over someone as long as he lives? He's already made the argument that we were united with Christ in his death and raised with Christ to new life in Romans 6. He says, for example, a married woman is legally bound to her husband while he lives. But if her husband dies, she is released from the law regarding the husband. So then if she is married to another man while her husband is living, she'll be called an adulteress. But if her husband dies, she is free from that law. Then if she is married to another man, she is not an adulteress. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, you were also, he's still agreeing with Romans 6, you were also put to death in relation to the law through the body of Christ, so that you may belong to another. You belong to him who was raised from the dead, in order that you may bear fruit for God. That's doing good works, doing justice, all that type of good. Same argument in Romans 6. You no longer use your members as instruments of sin, instruments of death, but instruments of righteousness, right? He's continuing that argument. You belong to him who was raised from the dead in order to bear fruit. For when we were in the flesh, the sinful passions aroused through the law, working in us to bear fruit for death. But now we have been raised from the law, since we have died to what held us, so that we may serve in the newness of the spirit and not in the old old letter of the law. He continues, what should we say then? Right? Because he just said so many things about the law. He just said so many things about the law. But Paul is getting ready to give the epistemological purpose for the law. The law served an epistemological purpose. What should we say then? Is the law sin? Absolutely not. On the contrary, I would not have what? Known. I wouldn't know what sin was, what was sinful, if it were not for the law. For example, I would not have known what it is to covet if the law had not been said, do not covet. And sin, seizing the opportunity through the commandment, produced in me coveting of every kind. For apart from the law, sin is dead. Here it is, right? Paul just said that we've been raised to new life. And we have this new existence. He is not speaking of a Christian existence. Anybody want to debate that? I'm with it, and I'm calling Brother Troy to be on my debate team for this. But here it is. Once I was alive apart from the law. Who in the existence of humankind was alive apart from the law? But when the law came, sin arose and they died, right? The debate amongst scholars is, number one, Paul is not talking about himself because we all are technically spiritually dead. The debate is this, and Paul also says that he kept the law. He was a good Jew. Okay,
Right,
so
right.
in Romans 6, he's not struggling. He's alive to Christ, dead to sin. So clearly, he's not talking about himself in his Christian existence. But the debate, and what scholars debate, Paul is using a rhetorical device called prosopoia, or speech in character. And Nick
Mm.
can correct me if I don't get that right, but is speech in character. Paul is using a rhetorical device. Okay, so is the I Israel or is the I Adam? Some people take the position that the I is Adam, and some people take the position that the I is Israel. But what we do know, based on the context of Romans and based on what Paul has said in other places, Paul ain't talking about himself. And so when you come across a cat like Ray Hagins, number one, he's going to hell unless he repent, because he's clearly a false teacher and he's butchering the scripture. But once again, he just does not know what in the double E hockey sticks that he's talking about. He has no clue. And he need to put this thing down. He really need to put this down before he hurt himself.
But here's the scary part, MJ. He taught this, he said. He was a teacher of Christianity. But anyway, let me fast forward a little bit here. Um, for I delight in the law of God in my inner being, but I see in my members another law waging war against the law of my mind and making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members. Wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then I myself serve the law of God with my mind, but with my flesh I serve the law of sin. Here's my issue here. He is trying really hard to make something else of this passage. And he's utilizing all his rhetorical fervor to make it seem like it's something else. Right? Again, the call and response, the banter between him and his reader, the banter between him and the audience, the clearly Baptist preacher mechanisms that he's using, right? He's trying to pull and push as many buttons as possible. And he has to do that because there's really nothing that he can pull from this text to garner his argumentation. He doesn't. Now, here's my issue with what he's doing. And this is why we have to be very leery of Dr. Hagins. He's making a mockery of someone's contention with morality. Right? So Paul is talking about this, an example of, I want to do the right thing, but I keep doing the wrong thing. Who hasn't been there before? What human hasn't been at that impasse where it's like I'm in a situation I know what I should do, but I will choose to do the wrong thing. Many of us have been there. And unfortunately, many of us have chosen the wrong thing to do. You know, I grew up during the crack era, right? So I knew a lot of addicts. I grew up going to projects, Brooklyn, New York, during the crack era. And these were good people who got caught up with the addiction. And they would always tell me, never try this stuff. I was a little kid. They would tell me, don't try this stuff. This is not good. I wish I didn't smoke it. I know smoking this is wrong, but I always make a decision to do so. There's a conflict with these people who have these addictions. They're conflicted. They know they shouldn't be doing it, but they make the wrong decision time and time again. And Hagins is mocking that situation. He's making a mockery of that, of this contention. And this is a man who's considered a leader. He has his own community that he leads. You mean to tell me that the people in his community don't struggle with this? And you better keep it to yourself, because he's going to look at you and say, well, and he said it in the video, well, what's wrong with you? That's a leader? He lacks compassion. And later on in the video, we cut it short because it was too long. He's like, but he's an apostle. How can he be acting like he's messed up? Where in scripture does it say the apostles were sinless beings? So only one person that was without sin, that's Christ. In fact, I appreciate Paul's transparency here. And to me, this is the most egregious thing, because he's mocking the struggle that all humans have. That when they're in a situation, I could do the right thing or I could do the wrong thing. And I'm very tempted to do the wrong thing. Even though I know better, I'm going to choose to do the wrong thing. All humans struggle with that. And for him to make a mockery of that is disgusting. It's disgusting. So yeah, that's my thing, man. I found that to be very egregious. I have a serious problem with that, because you're not a loving person. When you see someone going through it, you don't be like, oh, what's wrong with you, man? You don't do that. You listen, you relate, you pray, you help them to work it out. You know what I mean? You don't just like, oh, you what's wrong with you? What kind of leader are you? What kind of leader are you? That's terrible. That is not leadership.
He's a huckster.
That's terrible, bro. Like, I just, man. So that's my thing. Like, and this is your king. This is your king. Your king don't love you. Your king don't care what you're going through. He'll just look at you and be like, what's wrong with you, man? Suck it up. That's your king. That's not my king. So, yeah. That's what I wanted to share. MJ?
Well, you know, I didn't look at the video or anything prior to tonight, and so he got me a little hot. I think I would have went down there like Adam Coleman did, and had to have some words with him. Right, his security team might have been, you know, snatching me out of there, because you know he pretends to have protocol like the churches, but this dude right here is a straight up huckster. This is a mess. And then you got the nerve to mock people. Like whether you're a Christian or not, I mean, it's just an objective fact that people struggle.
Right.
I mean, that's a fact of life. The question is there any hope for moral transformation?
Right.
And I would say that the only hope for moral transformation is found at the feet of Jesus Christ. But he mocks it. Okay. All right. He gonna get rammed up on again. Again.
Phil Fox. I would have come with you. Whose car we're taking? Ah man, Phil's definitely for the smoke. But yeah, man, it's like, but like he's utilizing every bit of rhetoric to try to make that passage be something else, because he can't do it with the text itself. So he has to dance and prance and shout and this and that. And he's doing all this smoke and mirrors to try to block you from seeing what the text really is. It's a man who's struggling to do the right thing, as if none of us can relate to that. It's terrible. It's terrible. So, I mean, it can happen, Michelle. It can happen.
Oh
You,
yeah.
you already know what it is.
I get my money right. We're going on tour. We're gonna run up on some folks.
The run up apologetics.
Umar is on the list. He can come up to the school, have a few words in that
Oh
empty
man,
school.
it's crazy. But yeah, man, it's like when you really listen to these guys, how can you be captivated? Like if you just take the time out and look past the rhetorical flourishes and just listen. There's no way you could be compelled to see things their way if you don't get caught up with the high drama and the theatrics. You know what I mean? So, but that's it. That's it. This is your king, a man who quotes misinformation, who quotes satire and makes it sound like it's scholarship, and a man that will mock you when you're going through it.
Mm.
That's not your brother. Your brother doesn't mock you when you're going through it. He will. He did it right here. So yeah. So that's it. Um, Next Wednesday we will continue the series, and we'll have Mr. True ID himself, Adam Coleman, will be with me and MJ, and we will be dealing with Professor Smalls. He was
Mm.
recently on Sunnetta, and he said some very interesting things about the Bible, and of course we're going to give our commentary on those things. But before we go, you see like that, yeah, you see, yeah, that we're gonna go through all these dudes. Definitely going through Professor J. Smalls next week. You know what I mean? We're definitely doing that. I thought crazy, man. That might be a series on its own. That might be a whole series by itself. But so yeah, MJ. Final thoughts and any upcoming projects, anything that we could be looking forward to on your channel.
Boy, these dudes are like bed bugs. I'm telling you. You think you done put down one, you find a few other YouTube videos. But in terms of what's going on my channel, I'm prepping and working on some design concepts for the podcast.
Okay.
Um, yeah, let me get the Urban Christian Institute podcast going. Still got a video review of the conversation between Samuel Say and Chris Bryan. Samuel coming up, just kind of working out a few technical issues on my channel.
Okay.
But we'll have all that resolved, and also trying to write a paper as well. But yeah, we'll have all that resolved, and you can be looking out for that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And with that being said, MJ, BK signing off. Catch you next Wednesday. Me, MJ, and Adam dealing with Professor James Smalls. Peace.